Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. I am Mr. Kadim Khan and I am a lecturer in the Institute of Computing, Guwahati University of Science and Technology. Today we will take lecture number 20 of the subject of Object-Oriented Analysis and Design, in which we are going to discuss the swings and AWT components in Java. And here, in these components, we will discuss the JImage icons, which is a control used to display the images on the GUI of the Java. And also we have the JRadio buttons, which is used to select one options from multiple options. And we have JCheckbox, but it requires to select more than one options. Here you can select multiple options using the JCheckbox in the GUI. And all these controls will be explained with the help of the Java programming examples. Dear students, this is very much important lectures because it will give you multiple components of the GUIs with the help of their classes. Also, it will give you insights, informations about the different events that will be used to implement these controls. So that's why understanding of this lecture is very much important for you. This is the discussion agenda that we will cover in this lecture. It includes the topics of the JImage icons, then we have the JRadio buttons, and then we have the JCheckbox. And all these three topics, which are the major topics, will be covered with the help of the Java programming examples. Also, we will provide different events that are associated with all these three controls. Now, first one is the image icon. Dear students, image icon is a class in a Java, and this class will provide you an object which contains the files of the image. So image class is used to show the images of different extensions. For example, here is the syntax of how we can declare the image class. It is the image class, which is the built-in image icon infix class. And this is a class which is implemented inside of the Java X.Swings components. And also we have the icon, which is the objects. This is user-defined objects is equal to new. New is an operator which provides the memories to the objects when the constructor is called. Then we have the constructor's image icon. Inside of the constructor, the system takes the files of the image, including its directory. So the file is, for example, if it is stored in the app directory, then we have celsius.png, which is the file name with the .png extension. Now look at the GUI. For example, if we have a certain containers or frames, then inside of the containers we have a label. And the label here is taking an image or displaying a certain image. So this image will be in fact residing into our directory, and then that directory will be loaded by using JImage icons here. So image icon is in fact the certain class which is of the Java X.Swings.starx package, and then using the objects we can load the image inside of any GUI here. Now dear students, we will demonstrate an example here. Here is the example of the image icon in Java. This is the pure Java code here. So first we will in fact cover this code, and then this code will be run inside of the Java Eclipse IDE. First of all, we have the libraries. First library is import java.awt.starx. This is the library which is responsible to implement abstract windowing toolkits classes. Then we have import java.awt.event.starx library. This is the library of abstract windowing toolkit, and it is responsible for creating the event classes. Then we have java x.swings.starx library. This is the library which is used to declare are those controls which is of the swings components, for example JPanel. Similarly, JLabel is also another controls used by the swing components. Now we have public class frame1 which is inherited from the JFrame. JFrame is a built-in class and this is implemented here in the AWT library, while the frame1 is our own class and this is the public class and it is inherited from the JFrame. So means that when we inherit it from the JFrames, then all the capabilities of the JFrames will also be transferred to the frame1. Next we have the constructor of public frame1. Frame1 is the constructors. Then we have the super function. The super function defines the title of the window. Here is the image demo, so this defines the title of the window. Next we have the JPanels. Content is equal to new JPanels. Here we have defined the JPanels, and inside of the JPanels we will place the controls, and then the JPanels will be added to the inside the window. Now JPanels content is equal to new JPanels. Here we have defined the objects of the JPanels. Then we have content that set layout new flow layouts. This defines the flow layout of the controls. Here this is the free fall layouts, means that first components will appear from the left to right positions and the next and so on. All these components will appear from the left to right positions. Now we have added these panels of the content inside of our content pane. So that means that this panel is added into our GUI, which is in fact a frame here. Now here first we have declared the objects of the image icon. Image icon is equal to new image icon f celsius.png, and in the constructor of the image icon we are passing the address of the image, which is f:/celsius.png. Next is JLabel. Label is equal to new JLabels. Inside of the JLabels we have added the object of the image icons. So mostly we provide here the strings which will be appeared when this labels will be added to the panels. But here we have added the image icons object inside of the JLabels constructor. So that means that this label will display an image. Our image is stored in the F directory of and the name of the image is celsius.png. That means that Celsius is the name of the image and PNG is the extension of the image. Now we have defined the position of these labels on the GUI. So label.setBounds, and first point to start the label is 20,20, which is here. So it means that 20 from the x-axis and 20 from the y-axis. This is the first point, and second point is 150,150, which is this positions. So that means 150,150 is the second point. So starting from this point up to this point, we have defined the size of the label, which is in fact the image icon, which is in fact passed in the constructor of the JLabel. Then we have defined the size of the window. This is the 200,200. The size is defined in terms of the pixels, 200 x-axis and 200 y-axis. So that's why this is a square window. Then we have passed the true parameters to the set visibles, and this dot set visible means that this is the current class objects, because this points to the current class object, which is the frame1. So means that this frame1 class should be visible. If you pass the false here, then it will not be visible. Now here is the completion of the constructor, and then we have the public static void main function, which is a void main function which must be in every Java programs. The Java start execution from the void main function. Inside of the public static void main function, we have first declares the objects of the frame1. When we have declares the objects, define the objects of the frame1 here, so automatically the constructor will be called, which contains the code for declaring the image on the label. And then we have this dot set defined close operation, jframe.exits_close. So that means that when the cross button will be closed, then the window will be closed, means that the current class object will be closed here. Now dear students, this was the example of the image icon. Now we will run this example in our Eclipse IDE. For this purpose, we need to write this whole codes inside of the Eclipse here, or you just need to transfer by copy pasting this code inside of your Eclipse IDE. So for this purpose, close your slides and install your Eclipse IDE. I have 2020 Eclipse IDE, which is the most advanced Eclipse IDE. So I just click on this Eclipse IDE. Meanwhile, the Eclipse IDE will be available for us, where we will create a new class. You can also transfer this code into your existing class. So if you want to create the new class, then you can quite easily create a new class here in your Eclipse IDE, and also you can transfer this code into your existing class of your previous projects in the Eclipse. So just that is quite easy by copying this code in and then pasting to your existing class in your Eclipse IDE. So meanwhile, the Eclipse IDE will be available for us and it's launching here. Now Eclipse is now available for us. For this purpose, if you want to copy this code in your existing any Eclipse class, so here is our projects. This is the class 1. So class 1 is the projects here. So you should remove all the previous code if it is here. So I have removed all the previous codes. Now first you need to transfer this part of your code. So copy this code and go to your Eclipse IDE and paste it here. Then again copy this part of your code from the slides and then transfer this code to your Eclipse IDE. Now our code has been completely transferred here, but because here is the class 1, so that's why you have to change the name of this class from frame 1 to class 1. You can see that this has been changed. Similarly, I will change the constructor name. So this is also now class 1. You can see that now the errors has been eliminated. Similarly, here again, I will change from frame 1 to class 1. So this is class 1. Because in our previous projects, the class name is class 1. That's why I have renamed it from the frame 1 to the class 1. Now our code has been completely renamed. So to execute these examples, first we have to make sure that your files, the image files, should be on this directory and with this name. So then you will run the project here. To run the project, click on these green buttons to execute the project here. So it's better to use the .jpg formats here. So I just change sunset.jpg. Now to execute this code, just click here on the run button. So just click this green button. Now you can see that the image on this window has been displayed, and the window contains the labels, while the labels constructor contains the image icons, while the image icon is a separate object here. So this was the demonstration of the JImage icons here, then image icons. Now we will resume our slides here. Next important controls that we will cover here is the JRadio button. The JRadio buttons is in fact used to select one option out of many. And JRadio button is in fact residing inside of the javax.swings.jradio buttons package. That means that on the top level we have the javax.swings.stylex package, which implements all the JRadio buttons classes, and these are used to group the java.awt.java buttons groups. So first we have to define the buttons groups, and then inside of the buttons group we will add the JRadio button, so that the group will be defined. Because when we will add these two the buttons groups, then only one option of the multiple will be allowed to be selected here. So where it means one can be selected from the group of multiple options. This is the JRadio buttons objects instantiations syntax. JRedo buttons, which is the built-in clause, and then we have the object RB1. This is the radio buttons. Object 1 is equal to new JRedo buttons, and here it will take two parameters. First is the label, which will be displayed as in a label which points to the user that what is the purpose of the JRedo buttons, and then we have true false options. Exactly one should be true when it will be displayed, and the others all should be false here. So only one, which will be by default true, will be true. And again here you can see that another JRedo buttons RB1, which is the objects of the JRedo button, is equal to new JRedo buttons, and no is the label which will be displayed on side of the JRedo buttons, and false is the options that it will not selected first times. So you can select it, but when the GUI will be executed or the project will be compiled, so at run times only that options will be selected by default, which has the true parameters here. Now this is code which creates the group of three different JRedo buttons, and they put them all in a grid layouts on a panel, and then puts a tiled each borders around them. So first we have declared the JRedo buttons. So first we have JRedo button, yes button, new JRedo buttons, and here we have another JRedo buttons which has a label no, and will be unchecked. Then we have the third JRedo buttons which have maybe, and it's false. So only one is true, the other two are false. Then we have defined the buttons groups, button group, BG group, new buttons group, and we added all these three buttons inside of this buttons group. So BG group dot add yes button, BG group dot add no button, and BG group dot add maybe button. These three JRedo buttons are added inside of the group. Then we have the panels, radio panels, new J panels, radio panel that set their new grid layouts 3.1. So this defines the grid layouts, means that there will be the grid of 3.1. So 3, in fact 3 will be the number of rows and 1 columns. So 3 rows and 1 column will be in the grid. And then we have radio button panels that add yes button is added here, no button is added here in this panel, and similarly maybe button is also added here in the panel. And the border of this radio panels is the HE border. So that is the set border functions, border factory dot create tile border, and border factory dot create HE border. So HE border has been in fact added, and the title of this border is the married. So you may be married or you may not be married, and sometimes you may be maybe or may not be married. Okay. So this is the example of the JRedo buttons. Basically, the purpose of the JRedo button is to change the text styles here. So when you will select the plain, then it will be set to plain, and if you will select the bold, then the text styles will be bold, and if it is italics, then it will be the italic. And if you select this radio button, that bold and italics, so it will apply both fonts over this text area. Now, first we have declared multiple sorts of the packages. These are the packages which are used as a building blocks for the graphical user interface. So AWT package is in fact used by the JFrames. Similarly, event package is used by different events that will be implemented here, and swings packages are used by the swings components like JText fields and similarly JRedo buttons. So now we have defined the public class framework which is inherited from the JFrames here. So first we have declared JText fields T. T is the object of JText field. It is a private object. Now then we have private font, plain fonts, bold fonts, italic fonts, and bold italics. So here we have declared 4 different fonts. Then we have private JRedo buttons, plain button, bold button, italics, and bold italics button. So here we have defined four different types of JRadio buttons here. Then we have the buttons groups, radio button groups. It is in fact just instantiated here. Next is the constructors. Inside of the constructor we have a containers. Containers C get content print. So this defines the containers, and inside of the containers we will add different controls here. The flow layout of the control container is in fact flow layout. It is a layout. It means that when this buttons will be added inside of the container, this will be the free fall layouts from the left to right. Now here is the first text field which has been instantiated here. So just we have declared it here. Now we are here is completely defining the text fields. So T is equal to text field. Watch that the font style change. This is the string or the text that will be appear inside of the T. That is text fields, and this will be the size of the text fields, which is 25. Now then we have added T inside of the container C.add T. Next is plain new JRadio buttons. There we have defined the plain JRadio buttons with the plain objects, and the plain is the text that is passed inside of the JRadio button, and it is the true, means that the JRadio button will be true. This JRadio button will be first time true by the defaults. Here is another JRadio buttons with the bold captions, and it will be unchecked. And similarly, here is the third JRadio buttons with the caption of italics, and it will be also unchecked. And these are added one by one inside of the containers. Now bold italics, new JRadio button, bold italics, comma false. This means that here we have instantiated another JRadio buttons with the object of bold italics, and its caption will be bold / italics, and it will be unchecked initially. And also we have added these different JRadio buttons inside of the containers. Now here we have defined radio button handler, which defines the events, and this is the event which is implemented in AWT event.static libraries. Radio buttons handler new radio button handler. So this is the handler which is defined in the radio button handler. Now plain.add item listener handler. So we have passed this objects, which is the radio button handler event objects, inside of the plain.add item listeners functions. So that means that this event is associated with all these four radio buttons: plain, bold, italics, and bold italic radio button, which are defined here. Now then we have in fact created radio buttons groups. So radio button group, new buttons groups, it is defined here. In the previous lines it was just instantiated, and we have added all the four buttons inside of this radio groups. So the button group added all these four so that they are synchronized. Now plain font, new font times Romans, comma plain font at 14. This defines the plain fonts. These plain fonts are in fact just defined here. Now here we have completely defined them using their fonts. So this is Times New Roman fonts, and it is the font that plains, and its size is 14. So font size is 14. Similarly, this is bold font, this is italic fonts, and this is bold plus italic fonts, and its size is 14. And then we have in fact provided T.set font plain font. So plain font is provided here, and size of this GUI is 300, 100. So it means that 300 from x-axis and 100 from towards the y-axis position, and it is shown here. So means that this will be available here. Now radio button handler, which is just declares theirs. Now we have defined here using the item listeners interface class through the implements relations. So private class radio buttons handlers implements item listeners. Public void item state change means that when the radio buttons which will be clicked here, then the state will be changed here. So if e dot get source double equal to plain, so means that when the plain button is clicked, then the font of this text field, which is in fact here controls which displays this text. This is the text fields. Its font will be plain font. If else if e dot get source double equal to the bold, if bold button is clicked, then its font will be the bold font, and if the italics button is clicked, then it will be italics. Else if it's the bold italics button is clicked, then its font will be the bold italics, and these fonts are coming from here. From here, these are passing into these functions. Now here is the public static void main function. It is a function which must be in every Java programs, and this is the frame1. Add new frame1s means that here is the object of the frame1s, and this object is defined here, and has the constructor framework. When this object is in fact will be executed or it will be instantiated, then the constructor will be called here. Now dear students, to implement this code, we need to exit the slides. Then we will exit it here, and first we have to transfer this part of the code for Eclipse IDE. So first you have to eliminate all the previous codes of the previous examples. So just delete previous codes. So first I have transferred this part of the code. Now also transfer this part of the code into your Eclipse IDE so that you can watch how this will provide us the output. So now part by part we have to transfer all the code here, and this is the final part of this code. So you need to transfer all the code carefully to transfer the code correctly. Now because the class name is class1, so that's why we have to change the class name here. So just you have to change it from frame1 to class1. Now this is the class1. Similarly also change it from frame1 to class1, and similarly also change it from frame1 to class1 as 1. This is the class 1 here. Now we have made all the changes here. Now click this green button to execute the code. I have clicked this green button. This is the output that has been displayed by this GUI. When I will click on the board, you can see that the font style is changing. So you can see that the font style is changing while clicking different radio buttons here, because these are grouped. So that's why we cannot in fact click more than more than one radio buttons here. So this was the example of the radio buttons. Now we will resume our slides here. The next important topic is the JCheck box here. The JCheck box will allow you to check multiple items here. So you can check more than one of the options. This is also implemented in the Java x.strings.jchecks box class here. First you have to declare the object of the JCheck box like the radio buttons, then you have to define it, and inside of that you can pass the text. Also you can pass the text as well as the states. If you have not passed the state here, so this will be unchecked, so it will be unchecked by default. If you have passed the state as well as the text, so it will depend on the state of the object. The state may be either true or false here. Now this is the examples here. This examples is in fact used to buy a certain items, so you can select multiple options here. So for example, if you want to buy the pizza, it is of ₹100. If you want to buy the burger, it is of ₹30, and if you want to take the tea, so it is of ₹10. Then click on the order buttons to define your order. So when you have clicked, then all the options will be displayed here, and total price will also be calculated here. So how it is working, this is the code which will tell you how this whole logic is implemented here. First we have the libraries here, and then we have defined the public class A, which is inherited from the different, and it implements action listeners, which is the event here. So action listener is the in fact the interface class, and JFrame is our parent class, while the class A is inherited from the existing JFrame class. Now we have three combo box, so we have defined J checkbox, CB1 checkbox, in fact CB1, CB2, CB3, and also we have defined the buttons here, so just J button B. Here we have just instantiate declares them. Now here is the constructor of the class A, JLabel and new JLabels. Here we have defined the labels, and its position on the window is 550, which is the first point, and 300, 20, it is the second point. So L.setBounds defines the position of the window where it will display this label. Next we have the checkbox CD1 new checkbox, pizza at the rate rupees 100. Similarly, checkbox 1.setBounds, it is the position of the checkbox over the window. 100, is the first points, and 150, 20 is the second points. From this point to this point, this checkbox will be displayed over the GUI. Similarly, the third checkbox contains the burger at the rupees 30, and it has also its position. Similarly, this is another checkbox with the T at the rupees 10, and this is the position of the checkbox over the window here. Now, then we have also defined the buttons here, and the button position is also defined here. With the buttons, we have associated the add action listeners events. Then all these controls are added here. Now these controls are added here in just one line. You can also define them or do this code with separate lines. You can do it in the one line as well. So it is the size of the windows. Its layout is the null, because at the runtime we have defined its positions. And its visible true means that the window will be appears, and the set default close operation exit on close. When the cross button will click, then the project will be exited. And it is public void action performed action event. Here is the event that we have defined here. This is the action performed event functions. First we have declares the float amount is equal to 0, string message is equal to empty. So means that we have defined the amount of the ordering, that is all object the different sort of the orders that have been taken from the customers, and its amount will be initially 0. If the first checkbox is checked, then amount plus is equal to 100. So 100 will be added with the 0, and the value of the amount will be changed to 100. And then the strings will be pizza rupees 100 /n /new lines. So this will define the strings here. Similarly, if the second checkbox is checked, then the 30 will be added with the amount, and also the strings will be burger rupees 30 and /n for the new lines. So next option will transfer to the new lines. Similarly, if third checkbox is checked, then 10 will be added with the amounts, and message plus is equal to T rupees 10 /n. So means that 10 rupees will be added here with the amount, and at the end we have message /new lines will be printed /n, and this message, which is the strings, will be shown on the JOption.show message dialogs, and this comma message plus total amount. So this string will be displayed on the body of this message dialogs. At the end we have public static void main function, which is a function which must be in every Java programs, and here is the constructor. You can see that we have not defined fully constructor here. You can also define class A. For example, A is equal to new class A, but you can also just new class A. This is a constructor. You can also do it by just writing the new operator and the constructor here. Now, dear students, we will implement this code in our Eclipse IDE. For this purpose, click on End Slideshow. Then you need to transfer all the code here. So first you have to copy this part of the code, and you have to remove the previous codes if there are, and then you have to also transfer this part of the code into your Eclipse IDE. And now go to the final piece of code here and copy it here and just transfer this code to your Eclipse IDE. Now our code has been completely transferred, but our class name is class 1, so that's why I have to change it from class A to class 1. So we need to make this some changes. It depends on you if you are creating new projects for each and every program, but it will take little bit amount of times here. So I have changed the complete code here. Now click this green button to execute the code. Now you can see that this is the output. If I want to try for the burger and tea and click the order button, so that means that burger is rupees 30 and tea is rupees 10, so total price is 40. And if I want to buy all the three, so all three options are displayed here and total price is 140 here. So this was the output that we have executed here. Now, dear students, there is a little amount of task for you, so you have to do this task. So implement the quantity of each product which can be bought by the customers. So you can see that there is no quantity here. So how many pizza you require? Similarly, how many burgers you require and how many tea you require. So here you have to define a text area here. So our text fields. So you need to require text fields. Similarly, here you also require another text fields and third text fields. So you will check this, and then you will type the value of different pizza, means that how many pizza you require. Says 10 pizza. So if I will require 10 pizza, so the price of the overall order will be 10. That is 1000, because each one is of the 100, so 10 will be of 1000. Similarly, I will also pass the price and as well as quantity of these items here. So this is your task here. Dear students, this is the end of the lectures. There are two books for you. You should study these books. The first one is Think Java, How to Think Like a Computer Scientist by Alan Donry and Chris Mayfields. And the second one is Java Programming Basics for the Absolute Beginners by the Nathan Clark. Also, if you have any question, you can drop your email to my ID. My email ID is m.kadim@kust.edu.pk. I will wait for your question and will respond as soon as I get them. Thank you very much.